Well, hello. Good morning, Nick Wusz. Oh, shit. What's happening? You're
Can you hear
silent all of a
me?
sudden. I can hear Andy. I can't hear Nick. Nope. You're gone. Okay. You had to leave the meeting for a second. It's just you and me, Andy. We're
Okay,
good.
I'm sure we'll be back in a minute anyway, won't it?
Yeah.
Probably
Oh, here we go.
Oh, there
Here
you
we
go.
go. No.
Oh,
Oh, wait. You're cutting out like crazy. Try it again.
shit, what the fuck?
Oh, no.
Hear
No.
me?
No, you sound good.
Okay, good.
Sit.
Sorry, dude. I don't know
What normally the problem in our house is there's me, my girlfriend, two lads and one of my lads' girlfriends. So there's like five
everybody's
people
using the internet.
Yeah.
all playing games.
Yeah, exactly.
All on their laptops, all on their phones. So it's like just churning. You can hear the router.
Just going.
The gears are fucking going.
Yeah.
Dude,
Just
I don't
let
know
me
what
die.
happened.
Yeah,
That's
just
crazy.
let me die. So,
Yeah, I think it's your fault, Nick. You just fucked
Okay.
it up somehow.
Start it over,
you
bro.
know.
Sorry.
No, we're good. I can
Okay.
splice. We're good. We're
Okay,
good.
cool.
Or I can just leave this thing because it's fun. Anyway,
Hi, we're back.
Nick Wusz, it's
Hey,
here.
what's
I
up?
Hate Music. We are on episode 97, three
Wow,
away from our
dude.
100th.
Are we going to do something special for 100?
Well, we want to do something special, but like, what the hell do we do? I mean,
Well, Andy Wales here. That's 97. I mean, that should have been 100, dude.
I know, really. We should have had Andy for
It
100.
should have been number one. It should have been number one, not
Yeah, what the fuck,
97.
Jason?
Yeah, I didn't.
97?
I
How
didn't.
many other people have you had on here? I want to know exactly. Every single person.
You're the only one. You're the only one.
They're,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
not
you're-
well. All 97 of them are probably more famous than me.
No.
Anyway.
No,
No way.
no, I don't think so.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I
According
mean,
to my kids, they would be. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't know you when I started this, or else you would have been number one.
Nah, I know you, man.
Yeah. No. Last week we had Kelly Schaefer from Atheist on, so now we have you.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a good back-to-back. Usually, we have guests now and then, but typically it's just Nick and I talking about what we're listening to, or things that are topics about like concert going and stuff like that. But it's always fun when you get a guest on. And now that I've been able to figure out this Google Meet thing, it's really expanded our universe to just invite people like you that live halfway around the world.
That must be honestly, it must just be really good fun, really.
It is.
Yep.
That's all it is it's just, I started this podcast about 7 years ago or so, and it was just me. And then I stopped for a while because it's just not fun when it's just me talking to a guest, and
Yeah.
it's hard to come up with questions, and I don't want this to be like an interview.
Yeah.
And so then I asked Nick to come on, and you've been doing it with me for about a year and a half now, maybe?
Nice. Yeah.
A little over a year or so. And it's just totally revolutionized the podcast. It's so much better having Nick on here because Nick and I mean, we've been friends for 30 years almost. Is that right? Shit, like
let's put it in
28.
bolt thrower terms. Probably around for victory. Probably around for
victory. Yeah. And we've traveled all over the place, going to concerts, and we've been making music together for a long time. So it just made sense to have him on. And now here we are, episode 97 with Andy fucking Whale. Amazing.
Fucking amazing, dude. It's so cool.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, like I say though, man, yeah, if it works, it works, doesn't it? If it's fun, just, keep it going until it's not, I suppose.
Yeah,
and it's fun to connect with people that Jason's met on the road, or friends of ours in the local scene here. It's just really good to connect, and people like to talk on a podcast for some reason. It's hard to get them to talk normally, but
I did a few radio shows for Metal Messiah, and and just doing a 2-hour show on your own or compiling it and just talking about, well, I suppose things, music, and myself, really. It can get a little bit boring, can't it? So the same thing. I used to invite some friends on and just sort of like get them to pick 5 songs and explain how that fitted, how that fitted into their lives, those songs. But it makes it a hell of a lot easier, doesn't it? Really, that interaction.
Yep.
Yeah, I realized last interview, I don't like to call it an interview. Last person we had on, Kelly, I realized I wasn't that prepared because I've known him for so long. I was just like, I just have my friend Kelly on. Yeah. And then Nick was like, with the questions, and I was like, oh, thank God, like Nick's a little bit more prepared than I am.
No, I was just, I hadn't really met Kelly in that way, so I wanted to know some things about his past, and it's going to be the same with Andy. There's no pressure or anything, but I don't want to come in.
Luckily, though, I have no memory of anything to do with bolt thrower.
Perfect.
So,
oh crap!
so
well, I
if
guess
I look blankly at you,
yeah, exactly.
you know, I'll look into the air. I'm desperately trying to remember things, but
yeah.
Well, I guess that concludes our podcast then, because it's you know it's all about bolt thrower. You've never done anything but bolt thrower, obviously.
Yeah. Saying that though, it'd be like next year now with bolt thrower. 2026, be 40 years since we were together as a band.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
I mean, that is just crazy, and to think that people are still buying the records and
I imagine
still
you guys
listening to it.
Yeah, and I imagine you're bigger than ever, dude.
Yeah, I was just about to say, yeah. I mean, really, I think even though bolt thrower aren't going anymore, the band's still massive.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, there's that much love out there for the band. It's amazing, really.
Well, it's sorry, Nick. I just wanted to get this in real quick. Bolt Thrower is obviously just a legendary band, and it's such a singular death metal band too. I mean, especially like I feel like War Master On, it really got into like it found its voice as like a metal band, and now it's like when people mention Bolt Thrower, it's like it has a weight to it. You know, it was a massive impact on the metal world, and it's so singular. Like there's other bands that are kind of Bolt Thrower-ish, but it's like there's only one Bolt Thrower. It's almost like Slayer. Like when you say that name, there's like a gravity attached to it.
That's right.
And yeah, I would imagine it's bigger now than it ever has been. Like what? Like is it easy? Like can you look at the history of Bolt Thrower and realize like what an impact it has, or are you too close to it?
Well, I mean, it's in a way for me, it's sort of like a bit of a love-hate relationship. It's like with the drumming as well for me. That's always been a bit of a love-hate. So, you know, I mean, I tend to find, I'll be completely honest with you, I tend to find being in bands, especially with bolt thrower, because like, you know, with a modicum of success, I tend to not tell. Like, you know, if when I have jobs, I never tell people that I'm in a band. I never tell people, you know, and when they find out, I tend to sort of like, you know, I tend to get quite sort of, I don't know, sort of like quite, I'm just trying to think of the word, defensive in a way, where I sort of like don't want to talk about it. You know, like you have people, you know, like, oh yeah, oh, you're a drummer. Can you show me how to play the drums?
Yeah, exactly.
No, you know, no, you know.
Is that because it's so personal to you, or is it?
Well, I mean, you know, I mean, it's a, in a way, the way I explain to some people, in a way, I suppose, bolt thrower defined me as me in a way for years. You know, I mean, even now, I mean, you know, I always put on social media occasionally, you know, there's more to me than BT, because you know, I've done a lot of other stuff which I think is just probably, you know, I think it's as good. You know, I mean, people are probably, you know, pretty uproar sort of like, but you know, I mean, but realistically, I mean, when it comes down to it, and you have to be honest with yourself, you know. But I will always be associated and known for being the, you know, the original bolt thrower drummer on the first 5 albums, and you'll never get away from that, really. You know,
no.
I've heard like you know, like Paul Di'Anno of Iron Maiden, he says things like this, you know, where he's identified by those first 2 albums, but later on he had his own career, and like, you know, people.
Massive. Yeah, but realistically, there's a lot of people like that, I think. You know, I mean. You know, I mean, people do. They just, I mean, but there again, I mean, it's like with, you know, bolt thrower started as really, you know, 4 or 5 punk rockers, and just evolved. You know, who were at that time getting into bands like, you know, like Slayer, you know, sort of like Venom, all that kind of stuff, even Metallica and all that. And, you know, wanted to have a go, you know, really associated with that kind of aggression and music, you know. Yeah. And you know, but realistically, didn't know how to do it, really. I mean, you know, going from being in hardcore and punk bands, I mean, you can't just turn on, you know, you just can't. You know, it's me, really. My, you know, the double bass drumming. Yeah. It probably took me a few albums to get it down to where I was happy with it, really. But on the other hand, I would say that the one thing I did find, I think about over the years with Bolt Thrower, that people didn't mind, they listened to the music, they sort of like let us sort of like evolve as a band, whereas now if you took Bolt Thrower released in Battle There Is No Law, it'd get absolutely slaughtered. You'd have all these people that are really technical musicians, been to college, been to university, got degrees and all that, and they'd rip it to shreds, just like all albums, really.
Yeah, I think it was unique for the time. You guys blended that metal with the punk really well, and it was very Birmingham. It was very British. All these things were a combination that happened.
Yeah, I mean, back in the mid '80s, 84, 85, 86. Birmingham was so sort of like important to music. The whole music, the way it was, evolving, really. You had so many bands, and the great thing about it is, I went over to see Shane do that. What's that solo
Dark Sky Burial. Yeah.
And I was like me, Carl, a few friends, and Nick Napalm and Johnny Doom were there, and Johnny Doom sort of like said something which really quite important, really. The fact that how many people from those days in bands in Birmingham that are still doing really, really well now. And it's not even in bands as well. There's a lot of people that are artists, so it was a whole, that whole Mermaid time, it was a whole melting pot of a lot of people coming in, and sort of like a lot of people have gone on to, have pretty decent careers out of it, really.
Yeah, New Benediction is amazing. Like these guys are still going.
Yeah.
It's really great. It's really great.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, so do you ever get tired of talking about Bolt Thrower though? Like when you do like
I'd say not to, really. I mean, I don't really do. If anybody asks me to do an interview, I always say no. I'm not really one for nostalgia. I always think, a lot of like my lads and that sort of like say, oh yeah, you should write an autobiography, you should write a book, and I'm saying it'd be bloody awful. It's just a case of, when I meet up, like, when I meet up with people for a drink, or me and Carla meet up for a drink or whatever, and we'll just have a bit of a chat and a laugh about the old days, and I think that's where it's best kept, really. It was good fun, but a lot of it's you sort of like probably couldn't, you probably couldn't put in a book or talk about on interviews anyway. But
well, when you say you have a love-hate relationship with the drums, what does that mean exactly?
I've always hated it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just sort of like sometimes I absolutely love playing the drums, and it comes really, really easily.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I mean, sort of sometimes it's just a real effort, and I just cannot be bothered, sort of like a lot of it as well is sort of like I've always struggled as well, because I mean I'll say me as a drummer, I've got my own style. I never had lessons. It's all self-taught. Amazing. When I first got a drum kit in the sort of like early 80s, and literally had it in my bedroom, had the record player on, UK subs or whatever, discharge, and I just play along with it, and that's literally how I got into drumming, really. And then as I went on playing in lots of local bands around Birmingham, that kind of thing, and then just sort of like fell into joining Bolt Thrower, really. The way I actually sort of like joined Bolt Thrower was Jimmy, who was Jimmy Whiteley from Napalm and Ripcord. He came round to my house one day, because we used to sort of like, I had a flat over in Bartley Green, and loads of people used to come over, and we just used to listen to demos. And he just sort of like said, well, these lads over in Coventry, they're starting a band. Do you fancy doing the drumming? Sort of like phoned them up. They said, come over. It was a house that the Verucas lived in, actually. And we went down into into the cellar, loads of egg boxes on the wall, absolutely useless. Had a bit of a practice, and they said, "Yeah, do you want to join?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got nothing else to do." but get back to your question anyway. I've got my own style. You know, it's only recently as well, the last, I don't know, since I was probably in Memoriam, that I started playing to click track as well. So effectively, a lot of those early Bolt Thrower albums was just me and Baz, him in one room, me in another room, and we just play together. So you're constantly toing and froing, trying to second guess each other, aren't you?
Yeah.
You know, and of course, so effectively, it's not always, well, none of it's to click, is it? You know what I mean? It's just what it was in them days. So I've always struggled with a lot of people slagging, well, not so much slagging me off, but slagging me off, you know, about my drumming style, you know, saying, you know, and fine, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? I've you know,
I've never heard anybody say.
What could they possibly say? Your drumming defined that sound of Bolt Thrower.
Well, yeah, but it's just sort of like, you know, I mean, it's like with that first, oh God, what are they called? Oh, no, it doesn't matter anyway. It'll come to me in a minute. But you know, I mean, the first albums, the drums were a little bit, you know, well, they were a little bit sloppy in a way when I listen to them now. You know,
you came from a punk background, man. I mean, that's kind of how it was.
Yeah,
right?
that's it. I mean, you know, I mean, but the trouble is, you get a lot of people now still reviewing those albums, and it's like, oh, the drums.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And so, to be honest, I've always had that thing of like people niggling away at me that I'm not a great drummer, and you know what? I don't really care, because my argument is, well, you get your 11 albums, and we'll play top trumps.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So
I don't know, man.
It is what it is. You know, I mean, I'll admit, I'm a punk rock drummer.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what I'll always be. And if back in the day, if somebody had said to me, Andy, you know, when you're in this, when we're doing them first albums, you know, said to me, Andy, you know, you really need to be playing to a click track, I would have gone, yeah, no problem. Well, I wouldn't have done it, but you know what I mean? But so like, just to get rid of them, I would have said, yeah, fine. But you know, but I mean, nobody at the time ever sort of like nailed, you know, went on at me the importance. But when I actually come back from the 20-year sort of like layoff with Memoriam, then people were like, you need to be playing to click track. And that's when I got all the electronic gear, and that's when I started playing to click track. And then you go, yeah, I can understand. And that's why I've always had a love-hate relationship with drums, really, because I've, you know, there's always been that niggly thing that people have, oh, well, you know, like and although, you know, I mean, you know, we're even people in bands, we're not all thick-skinned, you know. It doesn't wash over you, does it? You know, you know, you take all these things in sometimes, but and you just think, sod it, who cares? Do you know what I mean? Get on with it, really.
Do you feel like when you are part of a new project or something that you're expected to play a certain style? And is that difficult for you? Like you want to try something different, maybe, or?
Yeah, I mean, well, I suppose so. I mean, because I suppose a lot of people would want you to sort of like, you know, want their band to sound like Bolt Thrower, but it would never happen anyway. I mean, when we started DeathCollector, you know, that thing, that was the fact of it was just a case of we were just going to see what we did, and I had the idea that I wanted to sort of like do more punk D-beat stuff as well, and do a bit more crossover. So, but I suppose in a way, I mean, realistically, I don't think what music I do when I play the drums, it always for if I play extreme music, you can tell it's me anyway. I've got my own style.
Totally.
You know,
that's what I wanted to say. Like, I mean, number one, I've never heard anybody ever say anything negative about your drumming, and number two, like, you have such a style that when I listen to you, I know it's you even before I know it's you. I mean, your drumming is so fluid, especially like on those later Bolt Thrower records that you did, where it perfectly accentuates and complements the music in a way that is entirely Andy Whale. Like it's like Eddie Van Halen, where there is like a specific style, a specific sound, and you definitely have that with your drumming. And you can hear it on DeathCollector, you can hear it on Darkened, you can hear it on Memoriam. That's why you are who you are, you know. So
yeah, I mean, well, like I say, it's defined me for nearly that's 40 years, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, the way I sort of like explain my drumming, it's sort of like it's sort of like you know, like a horse running. That sort of like and that's, you know, you get that speed build up, you know, and that power, and that's what I like, you know. That's the way I try and explain my drumming, really. But
yeah, War Master, when War Master came out, what year was that? Do you remember?
91.
91.
Yeah, okay. 91, that would have been, yeah.
Okay, so when War Master came out, I bought it on cassette, and I was really excited to hear it because I was a Bolt Thrower fan previous to that. And it was a pretty big leap, you know, from what you've done in the past. But like really, like kind of like what Nick said before, your drumming is what made that record for me. It is constantly pushing on the music, carrying it forward, and it was so smooth and fluid. And your double bass work on that record is just top notch. And I remember just like all your tom work is like so perfectly accentuates like Carl's vocals, and it's just, that's what makes that record for me. It's one of my all-time favorite death metal records.
Well,
I'd say top five for me.
Yeah, I mean, me, I always had, I never really listened to War Master that much, because I always thought, well, for many years until recently, I've always classed that album, I've said to a few people, as sort of like a bridge really, between the old Bolt Thrower and the Bolt Thrower that everybody knew. And to me, it was the album that didn't fit in it didn't fit anywhere in the sequence of albums. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in the first couple were very much, I know they're sort of like, you know, I don't like using the word grindcore and all that kind of stuff, but it was around at that time. You know, they've got very much that feel, you know, they've still got that sort of like punk feel, all the blast beats. And then after that, all the blast beats went really in For Victory and Fourth Crusade. But that one, it's sort of like a sort of like binding moment between the new and the old, really. And for many years, I never really listened to it because I was like, you know what I mean? But when about 5 or 6 years ago, I actually started listening to it again, and it is a really good album. There's some great tracks on it, really. I mean, really, it was when I suppose the band really took off as well, because you had, you know, you had the Cenotaph video, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that's when we started doing the bigger European tours as well, I suppose.
Yeah, Shreds of Sanity. I mean, I think that's got to be one of Bolt Thrower's biggest songs, I would think, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually, sorry. Like, that's actually how we met, is because we were doing those COVID times, like little jam things. And I don't think I was part of the Shreds of Sanity cover. I don't remember doing that one, but I played keyboards on the Bathory cover, Woman of Dark Desires, and I mixed that one, and then I mixed that Wolverine Blues Entombed one. When
LG passed away, didn't they?
That's right. Yep.
But I mean, realistically, though, I mean, doing those covers as well, I mean, it was great, really, because what we've locked down, it was like, I mean, even though in a way, me personally, I quite enjoyed lockdown, because it was just time to just sort of like reset yourself in a way and have a bit of peace and quiet. And but I mean, I still needed to do the drumming, so realistically, that's how those all came about. But that Shreds of Sanity cover, brilliant. I'd say it's better than the actual original. I mean, it was really good.
Yeah. Can we listen to a little bit of your drumming? Can we listen to a DeathCollector track of your choosing?
You can do if you want,
Yeah. What if you were to listen to a DeathCollector track for somebody that doesn't know DeathCollector? Which one would you choose?
Well, I mean, you're probably gonna. I'd say the most one that I'd want people to listen to is probably Taste of Ichor, isn't it? That one. I think that's a great track. That is
awesome.
Cool.
That's good.
I'm going to add it to our playlist. We have a little I Hate Music playlist that people can. I already added it to the playlist. That's the one I picked. But yeah, actually, that's my favorite too from the record, I think. And for those who don't know, I was playing bass for this band for about 6 months until we realized that having a bass player in Portland, Oregon for a Birmingham, England-based band is going to be problematic.
Yeah.
But I remember when we were working on the demo for this song, it was definitely one that really stood out for me. So, yeah. So if you guys are ready, let's listen to this track.
Sure. Let's do it.
All right, here we are.
Fuck yeah. Damn.
Yeah, great track.
But that just goes to show you really what you can do nowadays, DIY wise, really.
Yeah.
I went into a local little studio and recorded the drums, which, to be honest, on that album as well, if there wasn't a break in the song, it was one take.
Wow.
So effectively, there's no sort of like cutting in, dropping in, or anything.
Yeah,
The only time I stopped was if there's a stop in the song and you've got enough time to do it. Yeah. So, and then all I did was I did three versions of each song, and that was it. Just wow. And then they went off to Gord over in Canada. Then Mick had a couple of days in a studio over in Ireland, and Lee and Kieran did their bass parts and the vocals at home, basically.
Isn't that amazing?
And then they all got sent off to Gord. Yeah. And the genius that he is, he just worked his magic. But I mean, realistically, that was a DIY album, really.
That's amazing. Are you still involved with them, or what's going on with that now?
They've got a. I think I've spoken to a couple of them recently. I think they're working on a new EP or something at the moment. Nice. They've got a new guy who's filled in on the drums, so he's doing that. But I think they've got a gig in London, Incineration Festival, I think.
Nice.
Okay. And that's May the 3rd. So Mick's coming up. Mick's flying into Birmingham on the day before, on the Friday. We're going to go out for a couple of beers, and then he's going up to. He's going up to Shrewsbury or wherever to do some rehearsing, and then they've got a gig. But they're still doing a few bits and pieces. But cool. At the moment, I know Mick's been spending a lot of time working on the Zelot cult.
Yeah, the Zelot cult. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think he's been working on that for quite a while anyway.
He's great. He's a fantastic guitar player. Great dude. He's so fun. He's so nice, and his lead work reminds me of James Murphy at times. It's just, It's so beautiful, it's so nice, and what a great dude. Like every time I've talked to that guy, he's just been A+. Love that guy.
Like I say, he's been over to Birmingham a few times, and we've had a few nights out. So, but he's really, and he just loves that kind of music as well.
Yeah,
so which is great because it makes it a lot easier to work with, really.
Yeah, and Kieran too. Like I've been talking to him a little bit lately too because he's got that new band, Fomented. Yeah. He sent me an advance of the EP because he wanted me to write up a little quote about it or whatever.
Nice.
So I listened to that quite a bit. And Nick is coming to Fortress Fest where Agalloch is playing, and Kieran's going to come up for that. So we're going to get to meet him.
Awesome.
So. Yeah.
How does your body holding up with all that drumming like that? I mean, you haven't played in the last month, but just wondering.
To be honest, it's fine now. I mean, what happened? What the issue was when I was in Memoriam, the last year or so, I noticed that I was struggling holding sticks with this hand. So of course you go through the usual thing, and you have the tape on and all that kind of stuff. And that helped, but what happened was I think it was the last mini tour weekend. We did 2 or 3 shows over in was it Denmark? No, it wasn't Denmark. I can't remember where it was. But anyway, we flew in there, and just as we were flying out, their main hospital was being closed down because of COVID.
Wow.
And so anyway, we got back to the UK and everything kicked off really. And I noticed that my shoulder got worse and worse, and to the point was when I was practicing in here that I couldn't, the fatigue in my arm was agony, so I couldn't drum for long. So effectively what happened was Memoriam they were about to start work on their, I can't remember, the 4th album or something, and I just had to turn around and go, lads, I can't do it. I don't know if I'll be able to drum again. But anyway, going through lockdown, I got a sort of like phone consultation, and then things started opening up, and I had face to face kind of stuff, and I had physio. And after about a year of doing physio, they sort of like said, right, we'll give you cortisone injections, all that kind of stuff. And that helped. So after probably about a year and a half, I could actually start playing the drums again.
Good.
But now, although I still get the odd aches and pains in my shoulder, it's manageable now. I can play the drums. I'll be completely honest. I'm 60 now anyway, so I'm never going to be as fast and energetic as when I was when I started in bolt thrower at 20.
But drumming is like it's harder than any of the other instruments.
Yeah. So, like I say, I still enjoy it anyway. So, like I say, I've had a month off recently. Like as I explained, I'm just moving. I'm moving my room. I'd call it a studio, but it's the room that I work in. It's going from this room down into a sort of like purpose-built sort of like little drum booth, basically. But
I think that leads perfectly into my next question. Is I want to talk to you about your interest in electronic music, and the project that you and I have together, Cross Paths. Oh yeah, Nick's got the autograph version right there. Our last record. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you got interested in not only listening to but creating electronic music. And I assume that obviously it circumvents any issues with your shoulder or bothering the neighbors. What do you get out of making electronic music?
Right, electronic music is, before I go way back to why I got into electronic music and the first inklings of it, but really doing the electronic, doing sort of like Cross Path is my way of sort of venting my annoyances and frustration with things, really. How it worked was when, obviously, it was quite a few years ago now, isn't it? I think we started on that first one. I was struggling with not being able to sleep at night. So what was happening was I was waking up at 4 a.m.
4 a.m. sessions.
Right. Do you know what I mean? What am I going to do? And then in the end, I came down here and I just started tinkering. I thought, well, I can't play the drums. I can start tinkering around. So it was just at the time I had Cubase. So I just started working with, having a look through the different sort of samples, all that kind of stuff, and just mixing them in. But there's an issue. If I'm right, I know. If it's 4 a.m. or I'm really, really cheesed off about something, I can sit down on the computer with the keyboard and make a song. If I try and sat down 12 o'clock in the afternoon and make a song, I just end up deleting it. So it's a hard one, really.
So you have to be sleep deprived.
I can only do it when I'm really annoyed at things. Or at the end of my tether where I'm not so much nearing breakdown, but absolutely exhausted, and it is, and it just seems to work that's how it comes out. So at the moment life is fairly good, so I've got a couple of ideas. Really
coming out of you right now.
I'm in a barren patch, but the reason why, I suppose, in a way, being into punk, you've got to go back to 78, 79, when Gary Newman, Tubeway Army, that kind of stuff. I remember seeing that on Top of the Pops, which was a program where it was just a chart program every week. And I remember him coming on with his bleach blonde hair and sort of whited face in a way, to sort of and just these 4 guys just standing there absolutely doing nothing, making music.
Yeah.
It was just it was just completely different and amazing.
Yeah.
But back then, music was really, really varied. Now everybody tries to, I don't know, I mean, you know, a lot of things with like death metal, it must be like this, it must be doom metal.
There's rules, rules.
Yeah, there's a blueprint in a way, isn't there?
Yeah.
That people know if they follow it, you know, they might be able to make a career out of it. But you know, so realistically, it would have been that, and then you had all bands like, you know, you would have had bands with Public Image that were messing around with that kind of stuff as well. And then obviously one of the bands that I sort of like quite like over the years as well, I've got into them more now than what I used to. You know, sort of like Kraftwerk and all that kind of stuff.
For sure.
But then when I left Bolt Thrower in '94, like there used to be a massive sort of like dance scene, well, all in the UK, all over the world. Yeah. But I used to go to a few of them sometimes because I just it was funny really, because I remembered one of the lads. He used to be in one of the bands, Annihilator, I think they were called, and I met him there once, and he said the reason I like coming here is because it's so loud and the bass is so driving. It's the most aggressive thing I've heard since Slayer, in a way.
Yeah.
So I got into that sort of like quite a sort of like to an extent. But then moving forward, when I started with Memoriam, we had this idea. I had this idea of not having any gaps between the songs. So what I ended up doing was just working on samples, and Scott worked on intro samples as well. And we just used to use them. So I'd have like a Roland, one of the Roland sample pads, and sort of like, so once a sort of like song ended, I'd just tap pad number one, and it'd be one intro. Yeah, and then and that would do. So there was never any sort of like gaps between the songs, apart from when I got the sample wrong, and there was this everybody looking at me, going, what have you pressed, sort of thing, right? But yeah, so and I sort of like got into that as well. So all that kind of messing around, and it just sort of like led me into that sort of thing. But also as well with being a drummer, I suppose, you get all these drummers like Cozy Powell that used to do all these solo singles and all that, all that kind of thing. And but I mean, realistically, a drummer's a bit tied to a band, really, isn't he? So it's a way of me being able to sort of like work on music myself, and then obviously pass it on to Jason, because he knows what he's doing. I don't. I just like plunk around.
How did you guys even start that collaboration? I'm not even clear on that.
Well, I kind of weaseled my way into it. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but I believe that you sent me some samples just for me to listen to. Yeah, and then and I was like, hey, this is really cool. Like, I really like this stuff, and I was like, I'd be happy to like help you mix it, because the mixing was a little wonky, and I was like, I'll just do some EQ and some compression here and there. And then I think what I did is I said something like, this is really cool, but I could see like some more like textural bass and things. And I sold myself to Andy, and Andy was like amazing. Okay, that sounds cool. And then I laid some tracks down, and then I mean, now I've got so cool. I mean, I'm probably gonna get to it next month, but we've got album number 3.
Realistically, I have ideas, and then Jason has ideas as well, don't you? And then you just you just fine tune it, don't you? So we both have that input to it.
Love
and then
that.
Jason just, because basically I that side of it I've never really I've never really got involved in. Really, there's always been somebody else. So but it seems to work, doesn't it? So
it's great. And I've been making music in like electronic and ambient and noise music for since the 90s. So I think I have like a little bit more knowledge of how to like assemble it and all that. So it makes sense. But it's been really fun for me, because it's much different than anything I've done before, especially our last record, Path to Damnation. The stuff that Andy created for that record, that one right there that Nick's holding up, the stuff that Andy created for that record was, I felt like, much more developed than the first one. It was like you learned a lot, and I think you figured out what you're trying to do a little bit better. And like I feel like the first one I had to like move things around a bit and whatever, and the second one I was like, this is perfect. I'm just gonna add some textures and some layers to it, and like I think I added like a little melody here and there, and it turned out great. And now I've got the files for a third one sitting in my computer.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I mean, like I say, that second one, you know, the Damnation, Path to Damnation one. I mean, that really is me. The songs, you know, the ideas for the songs. I'm just trying to remember what they are. Sort of like, so you've got the 1,000 Regrets in a Minute. Is
1,000 Regrets in a second. It's even faster.
A second. Yeah. you know when you this is it. You say, but you know those times when things just smack you in the face in a way, and
for
sort
sure.
of like, and you have that whole sort of like feeling of regret and remorse and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
you know, that was that one. You know, and also
One Knife, Many Hands.
Yeah, well, that one is me. What I was saying about, you know, people having a go at me. You know about my drumming. Yeah, right. You know, sort of like it's sort of like people constantly sort of like, you know, stabbing you. It's not so much in the back, but you know, using that knife to sort of like continuously have a bit of a gripe about me drumming. And lots of people, you know, like over the years have done it as well. So that was that one.
Damnation Alley, and then Our Path to Damnation. 2 damnation titles.
so I'm just trying to even think which one it is. But then you've got that sort of like Viking tribal one, haven't you? And that was just sort of like, you know, it just supposed to envisage a soundscape of, you know, that final journey where you go from this world to the next world.
Nice.
Sort of like, you know, and I had the idea, you know, where you've got that sample of the knife as well, which is basically the body being defleshed of its physical sort of like being before you can go through to the next world. Yeah, you know, or whatever we end up doing. I don't know. So yeah, they all have meaning in a way. But like I say, I have to be with that one. It's because I think I was just pissed off and sort of like I say, my mum had just passed away as well, and it's sort of like quite a few months before. So, and I always with her, I always regretted, because she had dementia anyway, and sort of like, so she wasn't in a very good way, and I always regretted that. I sort of like, as you do, you know, you never do enough, do you? No. And that's just where they all came from, really. But it's just me it's a way of offloading a lot of emotion, really, which is very good for you. You know, it's a great way to do it, isn't it? Instead of bottling,
that's what it's all about.
Instead of bottling stuff up, you put it into a record that nobody listens to.
I'm glad you found your outlet. I mean, well, it may be, but think about how many people don't have that outlet, you know, and then they are really pissed off. And you can tell they don't have an outlet, you know. Yeah. So those are the people telling you you're a shitty drummer, which isn't even fucking true.
No, it's insane. I've never heard anybody say that ever. That's crazy.
They have issues.
But it sort of like works. It works for me because it's a great way for me. Like I say, it's a great way for me to put myself over. I don't expect anybody to like it. I don't really care if anybody likes it. Yeah, it's just something that, you know, something I enjoy doing. And obviously with Stian from, you know, sort of like Edge Circle, he really liked it as well, to the point where he wanted to release it. Yeah,
the LP turned out really well. I've heard a lot of people like it. I feel like I don't hear like a lot about it, but a lot of friends and a lot of people that I know have reached out, and especially with the second record, and said that they liked it a lot. So
we got to get it on Spotify, it looks like, dude.
Yeah, it's not on Spotify. It's just the first one's on Spotify is all. But
okay, yeah, I know. We've got to get round to it, really, but it's just sort of like it's just sort of the way it's been, hasn't it? I know you've been quite busy, haven't you?
Yeah, the last few months have been particularly busy for me with the passing of my father and health issues with my mom and just like a lot of stuff. But this coming month, Aglock has a lot of stuff going on. But I'd say in the next few months, I should be able to get to the third Cross Paths, and
that's great.
Yeah,
we can tackle that. But I'm excited to do that again. It's nice for me because, like I said, it's different. for me, and it exercises like a different muscle than I use with other projects. And I don't really approach it like Andy does, but it is kind of similar in a way where it's just like, it's so nice to just like sit at my computer and just create. You know, it's like it's almost meditative for me. It's like I get so focused, you know, 4 hours can pass and I'll be like, oh crap, like I thought it was like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to have someone like Andy provide me like these foundations, and then I can listen to it and think like, what do I hear here? And also, what does this need, like sonically? Like if it's a lot of high end, I try to add something low end, and vice versa. And having like samples have been super fun too. I remember like playing with like, I think Andy provided some like it was like a tank or something like that on one of the tracks on the first record. Yeah. And so then I play with panning with that, and so it's like you can hear the tank like going from left to right, and
because there was the tank one, wasn't there? There was the
gunshots.
There was the Messerschmitt, which basically that was, you know, frolicking with Missy Schmidt. We just play on words really, but it's all that sort of like dancing of a dogfight, all that kind of thing. And then you had the which I think the best track on that first EP was the Remorse with the Morse code.
Oh, and then that's great.
And then the sample of the ice cracking, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which sounded a little bit like a Wales song, really, in a way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I forgot about the Morse code and remorse, and
Do you have an interest in like war or anything? Because of Bolt Thrower's past, and Memoriam also seems to be, you know.
I think it's just always been something that, like, you know, I mean, I suppose it's always been something that sort of has been around in a way that always. So I am quite interested. I do like watching, all these documentaries on, you know, the Second World War, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm very much focused. The actual part of it that I'm really interested in a way, is, that Eastern Front war that went on from 41 to whenever, you know, when the war ended.
Yeah.
Because I was really amazed at how barbaric and how hateful that the Germans and the Russians were. You know, they physically detested and wanted to annihilate each other, really, for various reasons. And so that's I've always found that quite interesting, just to see how what people are willing to do. You know, and it's crazy, really. It's amazing. In a way, it's amazing how governments can. And it happens nowadays, you know. I mean, how governments can manipulate the truth and get and indoctrinate a whole society
For you to hate somebody that much.
Kind of stuff. Like, well, why? But watching that program, some of those programs, and they actually speak to the people that were involved, and you can sort of like get, not, although they didn't want to do it, you can understand why they did it, and then you think like, that's bonkers. But that, you know, I mean, it's great. I suppose different times now, different sort of, different wars, isn't there, and different ideology.
They're still trying to do it, right? They're still trying to project their views on us and tell us how to think about somebody else. That's so fucked up.
Because I mean, mainly because a lot of the governments in the West, they own the companies that make the munitions, don't they? Ammunition. And if they're not selling that, they're not making trillions of dollars every year, are they? So it's sort of like, you know, it's sort of it's big business, isn't it? War, really, nowadays, for a lot of the countries, even though they sort of like actively deny it and try and stop them, but they're making millions out of it. But, you know, I mean, but back to your question, war, I mean, especially with the bolt thrower stuff as well, the lyrics, a lot of those lyrics as well, you know, especially in the later time, I think Carl, they're more stories of his life in a way. You know, so you have to go a little bit deeper. They've got
using war as a metaphor. That's right.
Yeah. But they have got lots of levels, really. But I mean, you know, it's always been stuff. I suppose it's fairly easy. It's always part of our life, isn't it, as well? You know, the world, you know, and in the world we've grown up in.
In England too. I was thinking about Thatcher and like your early days in the grind scene. There must have been a lot of like, you know, political
Oh God, yeah, she was
emphasis on how the music was made. Yeah,
absolutely hated the woman. You know, I mean, it was horrendous. I mean, what she did to this country was just horrendous. The miners, all that kind of stuff, miners' strike, and just sold, effectively just sold everything off her. I think her saving grace was the Falklands that kept her in, you know, where she was for a few more years, really.
Yeah,
but I mean, even that as well. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what stance do you have on it? Fighting a country 3,000 miles away for a little plot of land. I imagine the real reason is it's quite close to the South Pole, isn't it? For when the minerals open up.
That's right.
You know, I think sometimes
always something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I don't know, but I mean, it all seemed madness to me. And I remember at the time there was bands like Crass, you know, all sort of like, it was very a big, you know, that very sort of like punk rock got very political in a way that, you know, everybody was very angry and always, you know, sort of like trying to sort of like, you know, sort of like show it in music, you know, the way they felt.
Yep. It seemed like there was an uprising and happening in England.
Oh
around
God, yeah. Well, I mean, really,
politics.
The period that we grew up in. I mean, when I left school in 1980, because of Thatcher, there was no jobs. You know, there wasn't any jobs. You went on training courses for a couple of months. You know, there was, and I mean, realistically, for me, being in bolt thrower helped me out because it took me away from that, really.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I mean, it's from where we grew up in from the late 70s. It was especially the UK was fucking shithole, really.
Yeah. Things were rough over there, dude.
Yeah.
So I wonder how that, as a grown adult, you know, we're all getting older. Do you still have that kind of fire in you around this stuff, or does that you see more? You're more mature about the way?
Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean the thing is nowadays I can see both sides of a lot of things, you know, and whereas younger it was just sort of like, this is wrong. We've got to make a song about it or whatever, or sort of like go out and protest or whatever in the streets. And, you know, because back in the day, they used to like stop the city and everybody would go down there and just sort of, you know, start going, just trying to basically going into shops, fur shops as well, because the whole hunting thing was a big thing, and they'd go in there and they'd be chucking fur coats all over the place and all that kind of stuff with the police, you know, police following you. But nowadays, I mean, like I say, it's more, I've got a family, you know, it's sort of like you do in a way, you just calm down a little bit. But, you know, I still see what's going on in the world, and do you know what? It's no better. It's just the only difference is you get to see a lot more of it on
we're exposed to so much,
on computers and bloody phones, and nowadays I worry actually because you've got all this AI stuff as well.
Yeah, it's fucking
what's actually real, you know. I mean, it's mental, absolutely mental.
Are you hopeful for the future, or do you feel like
I don't know? I mean, do you know what? I actually said to one of my lads, he's 18 now. I said to him, do you know what? Don't bother having any kids, mate.
Exactly.
You know, I just see the world, I don't know, not getting any better.
No,
you know, I mean, over in the UK as well. I mean, I suppose in a way you have it. You know, you probably have lots of gun crime. We're in a bit of an epidemic at the moment with knife crime, where, you know, like kids are carrying knives, and like 14, 15-year-old kids are stabbing people like with big machetes and stuff like that. You know, and you just think like it's just crazy. And like, you know, crazy. I mean, like.
Yeah, we have tons of gun violence here, obviously. Yeah. And now we have Trump too, which is a whole thing.
Yeah. Definitely don't want to have a kid right now. Like, who the fuck's having children?
I actually said that to one of my lads. I said, do you know what, mate? Just enjoy yourself, enjoy your life. You know, don't have any kids, because it's just you know, it just, the world has just gone mental. But there again, in a way, because of technology, we see a lot more, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. So when
it's
hard to know.
Yeah, I mean, when we were younger, you'd have your local TV station,
and that's it.
You'd have your local paper, and they'd put all the local stuff on, and then some other stuff from around the, you know. But now you hear about every single thing everywhere in the world.
It seems like it's total chaos. It's right.
Yeah. So I suppose in a way, it's probably no worse than what it was many years ago. But
yeah, I think our perspective is skewed because of the information that we have, and it's there's so many things now that are designed to throw it at you at all times. You just have to choose what you're letting get into your brain and your eyes and your perspective. And
I think as well, I mean, it's just my opinion, but a lot of it is there as well to scare you into.
For sure.
They want you to fucking click and watch. Yeah.
Your government wants you to do. Basically,
sure.
But you know, I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, realistically, though, there's a lot of fun things out there. There's great music, great people. You just have to focus on that, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
How does it relate to your family as far as your musical career? Are you open about it? Obviously, they know that you play drums and stuff, but
well,
do you talk about it?
I don't really talk about it to me lads. I've got a couple of elder kids as well, so you know. But I mean, but it's quite funny actually, because from one side of it, like, you know, like Josh, my youngest, he's 17, and he sort of like, you know, he sort of like said, Dad, he said, well, yeah, he said, look, I know you've been in all these bands, but I mean, realistically, you haven't really done anything since the 90s, have you, really?
Oh my God.
What the hell's wrong with you?
This is what great thing about kids, isn't it? They ground you. You know, they sort of like ground you. But right now, my two lads, they get so much kudos, and like, you know, they sort of like, oh yeah, my dad used to be in a band, like, you know, oh yeah. And then the funny thing was, Jacob, me older one of the two, he goes, yeah, I was playing one of your tracks to one of my mates, and I said, well, which one did you play? And he goes, oh, I can't remember, something off those ones, Loyal. And I said, you do know I didn't play on them.
Yeah.
Oh well, you know, whatever. But then Josh, he's now, I've just realised, because we got him this sort of like ghetto blaster for Christmas.
Nice.
And he's got his sort of like Spotify bloody thing. And he's listening to Cannibal Corpse.
Nice.
He's listening to I was lying in bed the other night, and like all I was like da, 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 da. Sounds a bit like Coronation Street. You wouldn't know what that was, but it was like the intro to Memoriam, and I was like, for God's sake! So, in one way, they really do like bring me down to earth by, you know, the fact of, you know, I'm not really. I think they sort of like said, yeah, you're not really a real musician, are you? Because like, you know, you're sort of like, you know, you're not out touring all the time and that kind of stuff. So one side of it, they sort of like they do sort of like bring you down to earth and you know, just sort of like make me laugh. But on the other hand, you know, especially with Josh now, he's listening to sort of like same kind of music as what I would have been years ago, really.
That's great. Wow.
So, which is good.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
But I've started taking him to a few shows as well. So I took Jacob down to see Napalm the other week.
Nice.
That was good. And then I'm tossing up whether to take Josh to I think Overkill are playing not far from where we live. Or you know, there's a couple of other bands as well, so I'm not sure which one to sort of like take him to yet. But so I'm just sort of like easing him into going to bands, because I mean, realistically, I was going to see bands since I was 14. I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The first couple of shows I probably would have saw was would have been UK Subs, and then or you know, Discharge, that kind of thing.
Wow, holy shit! Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, honestly, I've seen some great bands over the years, but I've also like seen bands that I couldn't remember that I've even actually seen. You know, Mick was actually saying, because I saw Judas Priest, I think it was in 91 or 92, and he sort of like, great, really good down at the Aston Villa Leisure Centre. And Mick goes, oh, yeah. Annihilator played with him, didn't they? And I was like, Mick, I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's hard to remember.
It's a long time ago. I mean, yeah, actually, I wanted to ask you, I do believe that you told me you saw Ramones a bunch back in the day, right?
Yeah, I saw them. I think the last time I saw them was on the Too Tough to Die tour.
Oh, I love that record so much.
I think they played the Lyceum.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I think I saw them earlier than that as well in Birmingham. They played quite a few years before, but the best band I ever saw back in the day, Dead Kennedys.
Wow.
Fucking
wow.
man. With the original lineup.
Yeah.
It was Dead Kennedys and a band from Birmingham, Drungos for Europe. And that I can remember that vividly. Wow. It was like the whole Dead Kennedys, such an amazing, the energy live, amazing.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You were telling.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I you were telling me too a long time ago about like some of the early Carcass shows and stuff like that too that you saw.
Dude. Yeah.
We used to play with Carcass a lot. I mean, because you imagine, before we all really sort of the early days, as we were signing up to sort of like Earache and that kind of thing. I mean, even before, there was lots and lots of shows. There was always gigs up at Planet X in Liverpool. There was always shows in Wrexham, Newcastle, London, Birmingham as well. But so everybody would be playing with each other, So one week Carcass had headline, the other week we'd headline, or somebody else. But it was a real mix as well. So you'd have bands like Carcass, Ripcord, you'd have Deviated Instinct, all that Cerebral Fix.
Fix, yeah, they're great.
Doctor and the Crippins as well. So it'd be a lot of sort of like hardcore punk. It was very. The whole gig scene then was very fluid, really.
Did you ever go play in Europe as far as those early days, like in the late 80s, I guess? But
what's that? Sorry.
Were you playing in Europe as well, or was it only in England?
I think the first time we went to Europe was when we did the Blood Brother tour, which would have been, I can't remember, 88, 89 or something like that. And that was with Autopsy and Pestilence.
Awesome.
That was a good tour.
Yeah.
I ended up breaking 2 fingers because we got into a fight with some skinheads.
Oh no shit! Wow.
Yeah, I had to cancel it. We had to miss a show because me fingers were sort of like that swollen. I ended up having to tape them up, sort of like tape the stick. But that was such a good tour. That was amazing back in the day with Autopsy. They're an amazing band, and Pestilence as well. But
love both those bands. That's so cool. And Grindcrusher too. I mean, that was a crazy tour. That was. I mean, it was really, really weird. We went from playing all these sort of like the usual, punk hardcore places that we'd all play. Yeah. And then suddenly we're playing like Rock City and what was classed as in Birmingham was the Top Rank and sort of like the ULU in London. But that was just an amazing tour. So it went from there to there, and then suddenly it went back to stuff like that, and then slowly picked up. But that was a funny tour as well. I remember at the Birmingham show. I don't know what happened. I think Shane must have got pissed off with something, or somebody set off a fire extinguisher. Them powder ones. Oh,
and there was in dressing rooms powder everywhere. So Shane was really pissed off. I think because some of his stuff got covered in all this foam.
Oh, wow.
And then the guy that owned it at the time, sort of like he phoned up. They phoned up all the venues afterwards, trying to get them to cancel because they're saying, "Oh yeah, they're gonna smash the venue up," sort of like. And then I think what was it, Nottingham, Nottingham Rock City at the time. The bouncers, the whole crew were like Hell's Angels, if I remember.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh wow.
And David Vincent sent them off to get some maggots for his stage show. and then sort of like so that was really, to come back with this, going to a fishing tackle shop to get some, half a pint of maggots, sort of like to do that. And then we were in there and sort of like, they did catering as well. It was amazing at that one, which was I suppose, the girlfriends of the bikers. And Mick was about to start a food fight, and one of these ladies just sort of like looked at him. No, and it was the end of it. Stopped. Yeah, it was sort of like, so yeah, it was really good. I mean, it was great. I mean, as in bulk throw, it was an amazing tour, really.
You guys were opening that, or you guys were the first band?
What happened was, I believe, I don't know the 100% of it, but I believe we were supposed to be opening it up, and then we kicked off a little bit about it. And what they did was they sort of like, one show we opened it, the other show
alternated a bit.
Just to make it fairer, really.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because it was, if my memory serves, it was Carcass,
Bolt
Thrower,
Morbid Angel,
and Cathedral.
No, I think it was Napalm.
No. Cathedral did the Gods of Grind, didn't they?
That's it. Yeah, okay. I was getting them confused.
Which was the next one. Yeah, that was Cathedral, Carcass, and Entombed, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I believe.
So Napalm was headlining Grindcrusher, right?
Yeah. So Grindcrusher was it was Bolt Thrower, Carcass, Morbid Angel, Napalm, Death. Amazing. And then obviously we did the UK shows, and then they went over to Europe to carry it on then, I think.
I see.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, amazing. I mean, it's sort of
what
like
lineup.
Amazing tour, really. I mean, it was a defining point in, I suppose, ours and a lot of other people's careers.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Do you follow what's happening with Carcass now?
It was great. Yeah, oh god, yeah, they're massive, aren't they? But I mean, it was great to see Morbid Angel as well, like, so they were great guys, like, so that was great.
That was at their peak, man. Fucking
it's such a great year for extreme metal, and especially those bands. Like, that's those are like those are highlight bands for me, and those are like all like highlight time periods for me for those bands. So
yeah, exactly.
That's quite the tour. I forgot about the Gods of Grind. You're right about that.
Yeah, but I mean, really, for me, and realistically, I mean, the way I always explain it to people, I was just lucky to, be around at the right time, really, and enjoy it all.
Are you friends with the Bolt Thrower people still, or?
No, I mean, I see Carl occasionally. We catch up with each other every couple of months or so. But I haven't seen the rest of them for years, really. I mean, I saw them. I think the last time I saw them was 2016. I had a bit of a chat with them, and then before that, I saw them in. That was at my 50th birthday, 2014, when they played. They headlined a big festival in the UK. So Carl sort of like said, well, why don't you come up and see it? So apart from that, though, I hadn't seen any of them since I left in '94 when I was on that American tour.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Was there something about the tour that ended it all, or what was the?
It was just I think it was just very stressful for everyone, and in the end, I think I seem to remember something like, in the end, we had a bit of a meeting in some motel room, and questions were asked, and sort of like, I just thought, you know what, I've had enough of this. But I'd also, for a couple of years before, not to go into great detail, but I'd had sort of like. It was a slow and ongoing disintegration of my marriage, basically. So I was stressed. I was probably stressed out for a couple of years, and probably should have maybe even left a couple of years before. But realistically, the marriage would have still fallen apart. So I suppose, in a way, having another couple of years with a band, but it worked out. But stuff happens, doesn't it? I mean, maybe in a way, I've always said, like, sometimes, people chatting, we were constantly as well, constantly touring, really. We do 6 weeks in Europe, then we went to Australia, did that Australian tour for about three or 4 weeks, and then we did a 6-week American tour. Okay. So it's sort of like quite tiring and stressful, really. And then on top of that, we used to do an album every year, or every year.
Yeah, you were busy as fuck. Yeah.
So it was quite a busy time, and for me as well, like I say, I wasn't in a great place anyway. So I think it was just a case of, you know, when we were over in America, sort of like this, you know, like I say, things weren't going well, and I just fucking threw me dummy out the pram really. And next thing is probably on the plane home, so, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I just didn't. To be honest, if I'm completely honest with you, I didn't want anything to do with music. I just, you know, I was in 93, just before we went to Australia, I met, which is like 32 years ago, I met the, you know, my girlfriend now that I'm still with.
Wow.
And sort of like, I was just happy to spend my time, you know, in that relationship and spend time on that. So realistically, if 2015, when Kitty passed away, if Carl hadn't got in touch with me and said, well, what do you want, you know, do you fancy doing something, I wouldn't have had another 10 years really of doing music. I probably would have just been working and say, you know, I mean, stuff happens for a reason. You just have to take advantage of it.
Were you keeping up your chops during that time, or were you playing drums?
No,
wow,
never.
Shit,
no,
man.
sold my drum kit. I had this beautiful drum kit, and it was absolutely beautiful kit. Sold it because I needed a car for work, and in fact, Benediction bought it off me, and many years ago, and just never sort of never played until I actually rejoined Memoriam. Never touched the drum kit, and had no interest in drumming.
Wow.
You know, yeah. So it's just.
How was that coming back then? Was that take a while to get your chops back up? Or?
Basically, what happened was when Memoriam started, I spent a month or two just sort of like practicing at home, and then obviously, you know, with the Memoriam thing, we just spent 6 months practicing before we did the first shows, really. But I mean, realistically, I mean, it was a couple of years before I actually felt comfortable back drumming again. I think realistically, album wise, it'd be the last album I did with Memoriam, you know, Requiem, where I actually felt,
great, dude. So
actually felt that was me again, you know, as in my, you know, Andy Whale as a drummer. You know, the other two really were, you know, even though I put my heart into them, you know, that they were still a learning period. And then obviously after that, doing the Darkened stuff and then the DeathCollector stuff, that's where I was back, where I was happy, really.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Oh, man, that's crazy. Did you so during those 20 years, did you even miss it, or you weren't even thinking about it?
No,
living your life?
I never. I very rarely spoke to anybody. I didn't really see Carl that much. We met, you know, we used to see each other once in a while. Yeah. And I was just happy. You know, I actually it was the first time in my life I had a job. And that was quite a novelty, actually.
After all that, thrower,
I was thinking, this is great. I can get up in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, con people that I know what I'm doing and get paid for it. You know, so and you know, I mean, realistically, especially in the UK in the 90s as well, it was like, you know, you had a Labour government and it was boom or bust, and you know, everybody was doing well. So, you know, I had a decent job. Me and my girlfriend, we'd go on holiday 2-3 times a year. So nice. I was happy. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, but music wise, I just fell out of love with it, really. I think Bolt Thrower was such an intense period in my life that I was just happy to get away from it, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you had to kind of reconvene and to think about what it means to you. Probably. Yeah,
I mean, when Kitty died, in a way, I mean, to be honest, if I'm completely honest with you, when Kitty passed away, I know Bolt Thrower had an Australian tour. I think they actually had to cancel that. I would have, you know, realistically, it stirred in a way the whole Bolt Thrower thing.
Wow.
And I would have quite happly have jumped on the plane and you know, and done that tour. Would have been awful.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Hard.
But you know what I mean? It stirred for some reason, for no reason really. it stirred something in me. You know, I don't know. You know, it's like the Grinch in it. His heart sort of, you know,
yeah, it grows as two sizes. Yeah,
again, and something happened, and then Carl sort of like said, "Well, you know, do you want to, you know, bolt thrower? I suppose he's sort of like finished. Well, I suppose it was another year before they did that, but he wanted to do something, and that's how Memoriam started, and then I just basically got back into it. But then as well, really, that's when I got into sort of like the e-kit and working from home as well, and that just opened so much for me.
Much,
yeah, that's cool.
You know, I mean, really, it went because I mean, in bolt thrower, I had a drum kit, but it was in some lockup somewhere or a garage somewhere. Yeah. So unless we were rehearsing, I didn't play the drums anyway. So I could go like weeks or a month or whatever to sort of like between drumming. But now I'll sort of like, you know, I'll come home from work or I'll have a couple of days off and I can play every single day. You know, and it's great, really. I mean, having all this technology to sort of like, you know, be able to work on stuff from home. It's just absolute eye-opener, really. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's so great.
And the kids today don't realise how lucky they are as well. Because
I know.
You know, like I say, you know, it wasn't the fact that you know, we're going to rehearse every week. You know, I mean, when you first start a band, you do, and then it's like, well, you know, we'll just get together when we're going to do a tour, or we'll just get together when we're going to work on an album. Yeah, exactly. So you have those whole periods of just you're toying with nothingness, really, and it's hard. But now it's like with this cross pathing, you know, you've got an idea, you can send it off to 2 or 3 people, and they'll give you ideas back. You know, it's great, really. So you know, I mean, realistically, the kids nowadays, you know, they've got. I know they probably do, but they're just so lucky, really.
Yeah. So much of the world is at their fingertips, and they have so many tools to make things so much easier. You know, I mean, Agalock operates in much the same way. Like we rehearse when we need to before a show, you know, and that's. But
the great thing as well is the fact that ideas as well. Whereas in years ago, you'd be jamming in a studio, whatever, and you'd come up with the greatest riff ever, wouldn't you? And then someone go, I'll record that when I get home. And then you'll see him in 2 weeks' time and go, did you record it? Nope. No, I forgot. And but now you can put. Now you can just,
voice memo. I could fucking just record it right now.
You know, now you can get your phone out and you record it, or your Tascam or whatever. You know, and just put it down on something. Or I'll have ideas for drums, and you know, I'll record them and then think that's crap, but the odd one would be okay. Yeah. And you know, I mean, so there's that much stuff that's probably been lost over the years as well. Absolutely amazing songs or song ideas. Gone. Just because we didn't have that technology, and you were relying on some bloke, one of the lads, to remember it on the 20-minute drive home. So and then gets back. I'm just gonna have a cup of coffee, a bit of toast. I forgot it.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's just the way it is, isn't it? So, well.
So funny. Well, Andy, we should probably wrap this up, but thanks so much for their time. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure to get to sit with you and talk with you for a little while.
That's one thing before you go as well. I mean, what are you guys listening to at the moment? Because I've had a couple of new albums that I've got. Well, new bands that I've sort of like got into. I heard the other day a band called from America, actually. I think they're called Interceptor. And they're like a really they just, as soon as the vocals come in, they just sound like early Venom, and they're just about it just popped up on my feed like Facebook or whatever, and I actually, when I saw the video of them, I actually thought it was a band from the 80s that were doing that stuff and never did anything again. But then
that's happening a lot, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, when I went onto the Bandcamp site, they've got an album out like next month or something.
Wow.
Like, so it's like, fair enough.
There's
But then,
tons of death metal that's taken after you guys, you know? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
these kids are exploring
yeah,
the
so-
past and they're discovering it, and it's
and
pretty
then
good.
and then there's a great band, Johnny Doom's band as well, Death Fiend.
Hmm.
They're really good. If you like Celtic Frost inspired stuff, they're a really good listen. Like, yeah, Death Fiend. So they're very good.
Nice.
What was the thing that you sent me last week? You sent me a record. You sent it to me through Messenger. I can't remember what it was called. You said it was one of your friends was involved in it. Man, what was that? That was really interesting. It was really proggy.
Oh, right, yeah. No, right. Yeah. So that was one of the guys. That was yeah. So
Misled by Beauty.
Like, what happened was I can't remember what it is now. In fact, you know what?
Yeah, it was called Misled by Beauty.
Yeah. And basically, it's one of the lads. He's I know him from Facebook, and effectively, he sort of like knows. I sort of like quite like listening to lots of different music. You know, I listen to anything from Blondie through to, you know, like death metal, whatever.
Yeah.
And he sent it me sort of like, and I listened to it. And I thought, you know what, this is like really pretty decent, like, you know. But yeah, he just sent it me randomly, really. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to send this to a few people. Nice. Because it was really good, you know what I mean. But it's nice. Yeah. It's nice to listen to. It's nice to listen to stuff that is just completely different.
Yep.
Yeah, this was Nick. You should check it out. It was really proggy. Okay, I can send you a link too. But yeah, really proggy. A lot of keyboard work. I think it would be up your alley.
Cool.
Yeah.
But like say that Interceptor and that Death Fiend album, like, you know, that stuff, they're pretty good as well. Like, but it's just nice to. I think it's still great that you know, I mean, you can still get stuff that.
Oh, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
And it's these kids also that are playing these death metal bands are really impressive. There's a lot of them out there that are like quality stuff, you know.
Oh yeah. I was gonna pull up my Spotify and see what I've been listening to lately.
And check out Zombie if you haven't heard them, Andy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like instrumental Rush with keyboards and drums. The drummer is fucking amazing.
Yeah. But I also like listening to that snare 6.
Oh yeah, thank you.
That's really good. That is. I've been listening to that quite a lot.
Nice.
Thank you. I'm really happy with that record. That was.
But to be fair as well, I mean, music wise as well, I've just got so much back into like my old punk stuff, like, you know,
that's cool.
like Undertones and all that, Killing Joke.
Nice. Yeah.
You know, all that kind of stuff. It's just amazing, really.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So how great all that stuff was from back in the day.
Yeah. It feels nostalgic to listen to it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Remember,
And there again, I mean, back to Bolt Thrower. That I think that's the appeal, you know, for Bolt Thrower albums as well, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people have grown up with them. You know, they've had bad things going in their life, and you know, a lot of people have sort of like said, yeah, you know, that those albums, you know, got me through a bad time, and you know, it's great, really, you know, to feel that something you have done. You know, has done that as well. And it's also as well, I mean, it's something that the fact of like with those albums that I did, you know, I mean, they're defining albums of a genre.
They are, dude. Yeah. And you know, your drumming is defining, dude.
Yes, it is.
Where you came up with this shit, it's so good, man. So you changed.
Well, you know, I mean, it's probably my drumming's probably me falling off a cliff, tumbling down 2,000 meters.
That's where good shit happens. Yeah.
And then at the end, someone said, "It's a wrap."
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I was looking at my Spotify here. It looks like I'm listening to Harmony Corruption quite a bit, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
A little bit of Atheist.
Old albums are great though.
Yeah. 9 Inch Nails, Go Ahead and Die. Kendrick Lamar, Doechii, Aphex Twin.
Nice.
What else? Oronzi Pazuzu.
Jason's really good at discovering newer bands, newer hip hop as well, and stuff like that.
I've been really into hip hop the last couple of years. Some of it's funny because my family shares a Spotify. We have a family plan, and so it's like some of this is mine, some of this is not.
Yeah, right.
One band I don't know if you've ever heard of. We played with them once, and they were a big thing. They played with like Chumbawamba. What were they called? Oh God, I'll have to send you a link to them because I can't remember what they're called now. But they were like a UK sort of like hip hop band at the time.
Oh wow, okay.
And sort of like back in the 90s, and they played with like Chumbawamba, and we did a show with them as well. We asked for them to support us, and what were they? Gunshot. That's what they're called.
Nice.
Gunshot.
Gunshot. Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah. There's a few videos, but if you like that kind of stuff, they're pretty good as well. Like I think they only lasted for a few years, and then they all went on to do other stuff. But they're pretty good as well. Like they're sort of pretty decent if you like that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
But like I say, for me personally,
out.
I just love listening to old punk rock, that kind of stuff, because it just reminds me of like when I was younger, and when I was starting drumming as well. Really.
Yeah. I'm a big punk fan as well.
Yeah. I mean, me and my partner as well, Janie, went to see. We go to, there's a place up the road from where we live. They have a lot of cover bands on as well. Went to Blondie cover. Absolutely brilliant. Cool. Just really, really good. Do you know what I mean? Cool. Really good. So
did she look like Blondie too, or was it like a?
Yeah, She you got that feel that sort of like. But cool. It was just. I mean, you can't beat bands like Blondie. I mean, back in the day, I mean, they were sort of like our pin-up girls, weren't they? In a way.
Yeah, totally.
Totally. When you were 14 and that, Debbie Harry.
Well, hey, dude, Joe Bench too, man.
Joe Bench.
Well, for a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah, she's the death metal heartthrob.
It might have been something like that, Grindcrusher, and it was that time you started getting all the sort of like metal people in and all that kind of stuff. And I remember sort of like at one show, one lad at the front of the stage, like sort of like to Joe. Oh, show us your tits, like. So Carl just lifted his t-shirt up. Like, that's the best you're gonna get, mate.
That's amazing.
Joe. I mean, she's very influential. Got a massive following now as well.
For sure. I mean, she was the first woman really in extreme music.
Yeah. I mean, really. I mean, when you think about it, what she probably had to put up with.
Yeah, exactly.
On those tours, especially America, where we were traveling around on buses and Europe. I mean, we very rarely stopped at hotels, I suppose. So, I mean, it's great for a load of Neanderthal brummies, which, you don't ever want to go on tour with half a dozen brummies, I can assure you, really. It's sort of like, but
well, she handled it somehow. I don't know.
I mean, that's it. You don't actually realise, you just think, much respect to her, really. Brilliant.
Oh yeah.
What you would have, because at the end of the day, I mean, traveling around in there, it's not exactly very hygienic, really.
No.
I remember when we were in America, we had this bus, and it didn't have a toilet. So, well, it did have a toilet, but what they did was, somebody had this great idea to stick like a bit of tube in, like about a 2-inch piece of tube going down from the toilet, and then stuck a funnel in it. But the only trouble is when we were in somewhere like Boston or something like that, where it was like minus 20 or something like that, you know what I mean? It froze.
So gross, dude.
Somebody tried to have a piss in it or whatever, and obviously, it's sort of like frozen. So somebody had to go. I can't remember who it was, and cut a section of it off.
Oh no!
Yeah, and realistically, that's touring, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
it is what it is. So,
it wasn't
but yeah,
comfortable.
I mean, like I say, great memories. You know, you can't take them away. Really, it was great fun. But at the end of the day, I had my time. I did my bit and enjoyed it and moved on. Really, and sort of, I'm just lucky the fact that I got a second bite of the cherry. It might be slightly different. I've ended up doing some different stuff, but that's great as well. Because, like, it's sort of like not an amazing amount. I don't think thousands of people listen to Cross Path, but everybody that listens to it goes, yeah, that's pretty decent. So, which is,
well, that's the downside of there being so many bands now, is that there isn't like there is no popularity in a lot of this stuff, and it's just out of passion and love is what you have to do it for.
Yeah, exactly.
Not for making any money or anything like that.
Yeah. There's no money in music now. I mean, there's a few people that do make money, but they're out and about all the time. It's not what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So literally, I'll just do it for myself now, because that's the important thing. As long as I mean, there's a lot of people probably listen to that Cross Path stuff and go, why? Do you know what I mean? Because it makes me happy.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
That's all that it's about. Any music that I do nowadays, I'm working on a little me and a friend sort of like working on a little punk rock project. I've known him since when we actually worked together when the very first job I had, I worked on a building site, and he was a trainee carpenter, and we got to know each other. And then In Battle came out, and I sort of like left and started doing bandy stuff. And then we kept in touch here, there, and everywhere, and we just got back in touch with each other. And he's in a band, and he just sort of like said to me, he said, well, I've been working on this stuff that are my own stuff, but obviously I can't program the drums. Is there any chance you can do the drums?
Cool.
So I've just been working on that as well, which is it's just
great.
a little punk rock thing, really. So it'll come to nothing, but it's just a bit of fun, really, and it's helping him out. So
that's cool.
That's what it's all about, isn't it, really?
Yep.
If you can help people out, really, and
Yeah, that's great. Well, Andy, again, thank you so much. We should wrap this up.
No problem.
So much.
Thanks for your time, Andy. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, it's really good. And I need to speak to you, because I need to know what your schedule is for that show.
Yeah.
Because I've got some stuff to give you. I've got some. I've got some 12 inches.
Oh, great.
Which I can sign, and then you can have them and sign them, and then
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't know my schedule exactly yet, but I will let you know.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so maybe we can meet up, even if it's at a service station, for a coffee.
Yeah, I would.
That's enough. That's enough.
I would definitely love to meet you in person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway,
yeah.
Brilliant.
Right. Thanks so much, Andy.
Thank you, bro.
I'll see you on the 198th program.
Yes. Yeah.
Right before the big anniversary.
Right before the big one. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So anyway,
thanks, man.
Have a good one anyway. Take care.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Bye,
Cheers,
mate.
Andy.
Nice to meet you both.
Thanks, bro.
Cheers.
Amazing.
Wow.
So British, he's just like
so great.
He's so humble and hardworking, and just like he's so British about it all.
Yeah. And
I love that.
And what I'm finding amazing is like the old format of this podcast. It was me and somebody like Andy or Kelly or whatever, and we'd share music. And I thought that would be a great way to get people to talk. And I'm finding that now, like we couldn't get Andy to stop talking. Like, he's just so full of life and so energetic. And Kelly too. Like, there's no shortage of.
I feel like even the songs put a damper to that. Like,
yeah, I guess it does.
Maybe we shouldn't even do that, because it's like that we were on a roll kind of, and
yeah,
there's no offense or anything. I think we needed to hear some songs, but it's kind of ruins the vibe a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I always assumed that playing a song would be like a nice little break.
Yeah.
And then it would be something to talk about, like, oh, we just listened to DeathCollector. Let's expand on that. But like, my point is like that, but also like the old format. Like, I thought those were talking points, but I kind of feel like maybe they're not.
That's awesome.
I mean, they are obviously, but maybe they do interrupt the flow too much. I didn't think today was bad.
No, not at all. But sometimes if the flow is there, maybe there's no need for it. I don't know.
Right.
But if there is a lull, then okay, let's play a song. Yeah.
But the funny thing is like, I guess my point is like somebody like Andy or Kelly, like they have so much to say.
Oh God, and there's so many stories we could get out of them.
I mean, and we could do this for 4 hours, easily with either one of them.
Yeah. Oh man.
So it's fantastic. Like Andy is very humble, but he is, he's obviously a legend. He's been a part of like so many legendary things, from like Bolt Thrower to the Grindcrusher tour. I mean, what the fuck?
His drums define those albums. His drums,
for sure.
Without him and his style, it would have been a very different thing.
Totally.
Which came first, though? Did he? I wanted to kind of ask this. Was from going from the punk grind to kind of the double bass, what we hear on Fourth Crusade and stuff.
Yeah.
There was some, was it the band dictating that? Was it him saying, let's do this in a different way? I wonder how that went,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like War Master was so different when that came out, not only from Bolt Thrower, but from other death metal records. And and like you said, his drumming really characterizes that record for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, all the Bolt Thrower that he was a part of.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting. And it's just so interesting how he's like so humble and just like, oh, it's just all for fun. It's just for a laugh.
Yeah,
and of course it is. But also at the same time, like,
he's a legend.
I think if I were in his position, I'd be like, yeah, I did some important work, and like I did these things, but he doesn't even want to say that.
The British part. That's the British part, is not letting anything get to your head. Yeah. Remembering that you're just one of all of you're the same as all of us. And I think that's kind of a cultural British thing almost,
I think it is, because I think it's totally fair and not narcissistic or egotistical to be like, yeah, like I worked really hard at this.
It would have been fine and expected.
It would have been fine. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, Kelly was very, very humble too. And of course it's unfair to compare people whatsoever, but I do find it interesting, like the levels of humility.
Yes.
And where Kelly was kind of like, yeah, I'm a lucky guy, I surround myself with talented people, but also he's like, I worked very hard to do that. Like, and I went through a lot of hard times where Andy's just like, I just kind of lucked out, and just all of a sudden I'm in fucking Bolt Thrower.
Yeah. I should have quit 2 years before, and then they recorded Fourth Crusade or something. What the fuck, dude?
Yeah. Well, and then he's like, and I would have hopped on that plane and like been a part of like the last Bolt Thrower tour. I'm like, wait, what the fuck, dude?
I don't know how he would have done that though. He hadn't played for 20 years or whatever.
I know,
or 15 years at that point.
I remember when Kitty died, and it took him a little bit to like put Bolt Thrower to rest, but like,
yeah, for sure.
If Andy Whale would have come back and joined Bolt Thrower for like a last tour, that would have been huge.
It would have been, and I wonder if they even considered that, or what was happening at the time.
Yeah,
it's too bad that happened.
It is. I'm glad that we got to see them at Star Theater.
Oh my God,
with Benediction.
That was a dream come true. Really,
it really was. I mean, no Andy, but
no.
It was a band that I'd never seen out of like all the fucking death metal shows I've seen, like all over the place. I'd never seen them.
I had seen them, but it was great to see them again.
You saw them at the Underworld, right?
In London, at the Underworld. Wasn't it cool when they were here during that tour? I always just talk about this, but how cheap the merch was. It was just like this all DIY like merch,
$10 a shirt, right?
It was $10.
But it's so smart. Like if you can make enough shirts to make that profitable, but it's super smart, because then I was finding people like, oh, I bought 4 t-shirts. Like they wouldn't pay $40 for one,
exactly,
but they'll pay 40 for 4 different shirts, so
that's classic consumerism right there. Capitalism.
It is. Well, they probably have like some hookup or some friend that can make a bunch of shirts for like hardly anything, and they're like, oh, we'll sell them for $10. And
amazing how they did that.
Well, it influenced the way you started Dolvin too with that first record. Yeah.
Why not, man? Why the fuck not?
Oh,
we're not here to make money.
Andy, did he say Andy just texted me. It's funny because last time Kelly texted me right afterwards. Andy texted me and said, "Sorry if I jabbered."
Oh God.
Dude, British. That's the whole point.
His British sensibilities, man, amazing.
Yeah. It's the whole point.
He always thinks this is a British thing too. Oh, they always think they're overstepping their boundaries or prying too much or these things. Like, no, dude, no, we're good.
No, we asked you on so you can jabber. I mean, that's the whole point, right?
And we were asking you questions about it too.
Yeah.
And he said at the beginning he didn't talk about bolt thrower very much, to anybody. He doesn't do interviews and stuff.
But he
so
did,
that was
man.
cool that he was open
He
about
did.
it.
He talked a lot about bolt thrower.
Yeah.
I try to be respectful of that.
Sure.
I don't want to be like, okay, you're Andy Whale. Let's just talk about bolt thrower, something you haven't been a part of in 30 years.
Yeah, exactly.
But when it comes up naturally, of course I want to ask him a little bit. But when it comes up naturally, it's amazing. I do feel
he was willing to talk.
He was very well. I mean, he kept bringing it up. Yeah, I think it helps that I've known Andy for a few years and we've become friends. But
thanks for making this happen, dude. This is so cool. So cool.
I mean, I knew it would be great because it's Andy and he's a super great guy and he's done some really cool stuff. I wish we could have talked about Memoriam and Darkened a little bit more. Yeah. But there's only so much time that I can spend.
Well, that was the question I had, and he kind of answered it. But I wonder if he's doing these projects and they're under the assumption that he has to play bolt thrower style. I wonder if that. I kind of did ask him if that bothers him or if that's okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just
both those bands are pretty double bass heavy, similar.
They're kind of bolt thrower-esque.
Yes.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Well, and Memoriam has Carl, the vocalist of bolt thrower.
Exactly.
So I mean, it's going to be a little bit anyway.
It's going to be, yeah.
DeathCollector even has like a few bolt thrower moments, but I think it's just because Andy's drumming was so indicative of that bolt thrower sound that it's just kind of come through.
Exactly. That's his style. That's right.
It's his style. I remember when I was working on those COVID covers, mixing those, and then we started doing the DeathCollector demos. It was so surreal for me to get like drum tracks from Andy fucking Whale. And I remember just sitting here, like where I am right now, just listening to him drum, just isolated.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is so fucking surreal.
That's amazing.
But it's so cool though, because he's obviously not a Sean Reiner. He's not a Gene Hoglan. He's very simple, but so effective, and he has such a style.
Yeah, he's unique in his simplicity, like you were talking about the tub work and like the fills he does. Coupled with the double bass, it's iconic. And
the snare work, I find like he does this thing where it's like he's doing his thing and he does like a little bit of tom work. It's almost like tribal in a way, almost, but very, very straight. And then he does this thing on the snare.
Nice.
And it just reeks of Andy Whale to me. It's just I just love it. Yeah.
So cool.
What a great time to be alive and be a death metal fan.
Yeah.
Back then, like late 80s, early 90s, being a part of the Grindcrusher tour.
Yeah.
Seeing Carcass, like those fucking early shows, like Recapitulation, Symphonies of Sickness era.
Yep.
Fucking Napalm, Harmony Corruption. He's
talking
about
Angel
Pestilence.
Altars.
Yeah. Pestilence, Autopsy. I mean, that's Consuming Impulse era.
Yep.
I mean, that's
Cerebral Fix, Benediction.
Cerebral Fix.
Bands, and then I think before they kind of went into the death metal scene, they were playing with all these punk bands that are iconic.
Yeah.
Well, Crass and all these bands that are just Doom and shit like this,
Well, it's insane. It's so cool because like Bolt Throw's trajectory really proves that point of like, death metal is just kind of an evolution of not only traditional metal, but punk at a lot of time,
Yeah, exactly.
And Bolt Thrower, like, if you listen to In Battle There Is No Law or Realm of Chaos, like they're not punk records necessarily.
But you hear the influences more.
Definitely hear the influences.
Yeah.
And it's cool that Andy brought that back with DeathCollector. Like you can hear those D-beat moments on DeathCollector. And
totally. I feel like it's a British thing too. There's very British, these guys.
Yes.
I mean, obviously the way he talks and the way he behaves, but the music is British.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't really know how that defined itself, or what that meant at the time.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, British punk, right? I mean, it's so different. British punk is so different than like American punk.
Yeah,
it's so different than Ramones or Black Flag or Germs or something.
Something about it, whether it's gritty or whether it's I don't know, I'm not sure.
And the whole political aspect. I mean, American punk was political too. I mean, that's kind of the backbone of punk.
For sure, Reagan and all that, but Thatcher.
Thatcher, it's a whole different vibe, right?
Yeah,
it's like it's almost more chaotic and noisy, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just what a interesting time. It's like late 70s CBGBs or something, but for them it would be late 80s Birmingham or something. I mean,
like, there was some club there all playing. He mentioned it, the Mermaid.
The Mermaid, The Mermaid is like the legendary club there, I think.
Yeah.
But like, how did so much good metal come out of Birmingham for so many decades?
Exactly.
I mean
That's a good question for him. I wonder if he has an influence on that. I think a lot of in my philosophy on that is that it's just they're hardworking people, and
it's blue collar.
they were blue collar, and they were raised to work hard. Their parents were, asking them to work hard, and whatever they did, and they did
Whatever
it
they
in the
did,
music.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Liverpool too, right? I mean, Liverpool, Birmingham, like it's all like blue collar, like industrial workers
Something
and
about it,
stuff.
Birmingham, though. I don't know, man.
I know.
So many bands came from there. Even Chumbawamba came from there. We forget, but they were like a ska punk band or whatever.
Well, they were like anarcho punk. They were like playing shows with Crass and stuff.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And Flux of Pink Indians and that type of shit. But yeah, Birmingham, I mean, that's so many. Forget about metal as a whole, but just like specifically death metal, like so many bands out of Birmingham.
Yep.
It's
Cancer,
so crazy.
Cerebral Fix, Benediction.
I mean, Napalm.
Napalm.
Is Carcass from Birmingham or are they from Liverpool?
Yeah, I don't think they are, but anyway, yeah. I don't think Carcass is from. Maybe they are.
They're either from Liverpool or Birmingham. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember.
Liverpool, yeah.
But anyway, just like tons of great music.
Yep.
So crazy.
Why are we so blessed,
Man, why are we so blessed?
To be able to talk to a legend like that over the internet, it just kind of blows my mind, I'm in my office here. I'm really comfortable.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm in my little studio office here too, and it's just like we just got to chat with Andy Whale for
just thinking about in the 90s or something, taking a tape recorder to the show, having the artist spend, at the most 15, 20 minutes before the show, maybe interviewing them, talking to them or whatever, and how awkward and weird that was.
Yeah.
And now we can freeform talking to them for an hour and a half, and it's really great.
Oh yeah. And you can see them, and it's like, oh, we were just video chatting with this guy in England, and
really great.
Same thing with Kelly. It's like he was on his back porch, with sunglasses on, drinking his Jaeger.
Drinking his Jaeger.
Yeah.
I never think of that as like a drink to sip, It's like a drink to get fucked up.
Well, it's funny because I was like, what are you drinking? And he's like, you know what I'm drinking. And I'm like, I do? And he's like, Jaeger. It's like, that's what I always drink. I'm like, oh, I guess I did know that about you.
Sponsored by Jaeger, dude.
Yeah, maybe. Jägermeister.
Yeah.
It's
like official drink of atheist.
It's like me and my LaCroix.
Yes, that's right.
Official drink of I hate music.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, shit, man, that was amazing. Right. I gotta run, but man, what a great talk. Andy's such a great dude. What a legacy. What a history.
We're honored to be talking to him.
Yeah. Amazing.
Humble man.
Makes me want to get on that third Cross Paths record.
Yes, I hope you do. But whenever you do, it'll be great. No problem.
Yeah. No rush, man. No problem. All right, Nick, I'll see you next time. We'll have lots of stuff coming up, but we should try to get a catch-up episode.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Soonish, because we have a log of really great emails to get into too.
Nice,
so
nice. And a lot of shows have happened. A
lot of shows, a lot of life has happened, and next month is going to be a push for me. So
you're right. So maybe we should try to get one before then.
Yeah, we should try to get one before then. And I have some other, just like a lot of stuff to talk about too. So
okay,
let's try to do it next week or something.
All right, check you later.
All right, ciao.
Bye.
Bye.